Hello and welcome. I'm Jono Hayes and you're watching W News Extra, broadcasting live from the Arabiya studios. And these are our top stories. French President Emmanuel Macron says security guarantees for Ukraine are ready. That's following a crucial coalition meeting of the willing with President Zelenskyy in Paris. The number of people killed in a funicular tram crash in Lisbon rises to 16 as Portugal declares a day of mourning. And pressure mounts on the UK's Deputy Prime Minister to resign over a tax error as she fights for her political future. French President Emmanuel Macron has said security guarantees for Ukraine are ready. That's after hosting a coalition of the willing meeting in Paris with President Zelenskyy today. The Ukrainian leader also said that the US should be part of the security guarantees, and he said he discussed putting pressure on Russia during a call with President Donald Trump. Now, to discuss this and all of today's stories, we're joined in the studio by Dr. Elie Al-Hindy, Professor of International Relations at the American University in the Emirates. We're also joined by correspondent and columnist Gemma White. Thank you both for joining us. First of all, we'll turn to you on this, Dr. Elie, the significance of the Coalition of the Willing in Paris meeting today. Now that we know loosely kind of what the details are, did Ukraine actually achieve what they set out to get from this meeting?
I mean, they achieved a nice declaration of intentions, something a bit more than brainstorming, maybe ideas on papers now with some numbers, with some potentials of what is each country willing to engage in that. But all of this remains quite in the air as long as several conditions have not been met yet. First, all of this is a discussion of what's going to happen after a ceasefire, and the ceasefire is still far ahead and not visible when this would happen. Second, are they willing to do that against Russia's approval? I don't think they are. It would be a catastrophe if they do put soldiers without Russia's approval. And if we're going to wait for Russia's approval, Russia's going to approve only the few things that don't damage its reputation, that don't damage its plans in eastern Ukraine in keeping the lands that it has occupied. So I think it is a good step by the Europeans. They are a bit maturing away from the US control, but still, I don't think they are able to achieve anything significant without the US involvement in that, and in this specific case, without the Russian approval.
And also maybe without the EU in its entirety being involved behind this. And to you, Gemma, the EU has said that there's a pretty precise plan for troop deployment in there as well. But now we know that it's 26 countries who are ready to send in troops. 30 were on ground today, or over 30 were on ground today, to strengthen Ukraine's defences. How realistic is that, do you think?
I think I'm not sure how realistic it is. It makes for some good sound bites, and I appreciate the rhetoric of Europe pulling together for a show of force. But there are so many moving parts in this, as we've seen frequently. Russia could do something completely different tomorrow. The countries as well, the leaders who've made these, not promises, but have been part of the discussions, now have to go back to their countries, and some might need parliamentary votes in order to move forward on this. So there's so many moving parts that it makes the fact that it's realistic, that's very tricky to say, I think. I think, as Dr. Elie was saying, I wonder if they're now waiting for the US to come in and do the negotiations. Here we've had this big meeting, we've come together, we've got all these agreements, and now they've sort of cleared the ground or laid the groundwork for Trump to come in and start the negotiations.
They did call him during that meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, apparently he jumped on a call with them to be kept up to date.
But I'm wondering if they're now waiting for him to kind of, take that final step. But as far as being realistic, no, but I think it is a step in the right direction.
It's good to see the UK close to the Europeans this way, huh?
Well, I guess since Brexit, this is the closest they're likely to get.
Yes.
But there are many facets, and we'll talk about them in just a while, but not just in the UK, but many European countries that are facing their own individual crisis right now.
Definitely. First, just to conclude on that point, it's been said that the further the UK goes from the US, the closer it is to the European continent altogether. And this is what we're seeing.
Yep.
We're seeing Trump that is pushing away allies or traditional allies. And this has created a special connection and special bond between especially the UK and France, but also with Germany, because they feel this is so threatening for them. But again, as you said, Jono, the French government is going to collapse on Monday. This is almost sure. The British Labour ruling party is facing serious challenge, serious popularity decline. The German economy that used to be the powerhouse of Europe is now facing serious challenges. So who's really pulling the strings? Who's really going to put all these promises into what is feasible without really the US commitment and the US political weight into that action? So I think, as Gemma was saying, it is a good step that Trump can use in a future negotiation. It is not significant on its own. There's a lot to be accounted for, and really European countries are much weaker than they used to be.
And without a peace deal / ceasefire, this is just rhetoric that we've heard before.
Definitely.
Well, earlier on, I spoke to Franek Vyakorga, who is the chief of staff to the Belarusian opposition leader. Now, I asked some details about how this could jeopardize with cracks within the EU seeming to form already. Have a listen to this.
Of course it can jeopardize. Of course, everything might happen. No one can predict what will happen next week or next month. The only thing which is stable and clear that Russia, with the help of Lukashenko in Belarus, they will not stop. And even if they will get any ceasefire right now, they will just use this time to prepare for another war. And the next victim could be not Ukraine, not Belarus, but Baltic states. And of course, Russians are using their allies within the European Union and also in America to lobby for giving up Ukraine. And here we have to explain that this is not only about Ukraine and Russia, this is about fight between democracy and tyranny.
Somewhat of a fight with democracy, but Gemma, if this does go ahead, where's the money going to come from?
So this is interesting in that the money is actually coming from frozen Russian assets.
So this is Russian money?
Russian money funding Ukrainian military machine against them. We've come full circle here. Now, evidently, it's already been over £1 billion. That's about $1.23 billion, which is being used to train Ukrainian troops, to provide the military, missiles. So Russia's money is being used against it. And I do wonder how big an effect that will have, these frozen assets. What do you think?
Definitely, they need that money to make the thing happen, but also it's been a very tricky legal argument. Are they actually allowed to use that money or not? And Putin has expressed real fury about that happening. But I think they need it, and I think the money is there, so they are making the best use of it, if we can say. But we have to also remember that Ukraine is also paying from its own minerals, according to the US agreement, to buy American weapons with their own money. So it's everybody benefiting except the Ukrainians, unfortunately.
We had this reiterated from Putin before we even went into this summit as well, but he said he will achieve his aims through military might. That's shaping the discussion ever so slightly as well. Do you think that's having an influence, Dr. Elie, on the meeting that took place today?
Definitely, the Europeans have a real scare from what Putin would do next if he is not stopped in Ukraine. Definitely the Baltic states, definitely the Belarusian opposition and all of Eastern Europe, but even the UK and Germany do really fear what Putin could be, aiming at if he manages to achieve what he wants in Ukraine by force. So this is for them something that is a long-term commitment. This is for them something that is, I wouldn't say existential, but really a direct and efficient threat. That's why they are willing to put in all that effort, all that financial commitment, and all that military grip, if we can say.
Gemma, Dr. Elie, thank you so much for your thoughts on that. We're going to move on to our next story, and now to Portugal, which is in mourning after a tragic crash which involved Lisbon's historic Gloria funicular, which left at least 16 people dead and more than 20 injured. Now, the 140-year-old cable car derailed and slammed into a building near Liberty Avenue, trapping several passengers. Officials say that foreign nationals are among the victims, and investigators are now working on a case to determine what caused the disaster. Gemma, first to you on this. This funicular is such a symbol of Lisbon. It's on so many different postcards and fridge magnets from there as well. It's shocking for residents, but also for tourists to see something so iconic that can fail so catastrophically.
Yeah, this is, I mean, it's a national monument. It's been designated a national monument, and it carries around 3 million people each year, and the biggest portion of that are tourists. The queues for this funicular, you know, you could be in the queue for like a couple of hours, but everyone wants to ride this. It's such a part of the fabric of the city, and it takes you from the square down below up to sort of this very vibrant area where everyone goes for nightlife and that kind of thing. Now, it put me in mind, seeing the devastation of the crash, it put me in mind of seeing the red double-decker bus in London following the, you know, the terrorist attack on 7/7. It's this image that is, you know, intrinsic to the city, and it's been blown apart and it's been damaged. So the effect on the people of Lisbon, you know, on the sort of national psyche will be big, I think.
Dr. Elie, this, as we mentioned, it's such an iconic piece of the city as well. Do you think it'll affect tourism if something like this is after being hit like this?
It will definitely to a certain extent, but for a short while, I think. This is so iconic. I've been there. I've been to that funicular. It's a beautiful site. It's just an intrinsic part of Lisbon itself. I think it will suffer for a while, but then tourism will pick up and tourists will just do what tourists do, even if for a while this could be hesitant, they could be hesitant from using something that has been damaged. Especially now with the comparison, I understand the imaging and the symbolism of that. Thank God for now, nothing is mentioned about any, you know, intentional damage that happens. It seems it's only a maintenance issue, which would not really scare tourists away. This could easily be fixed.
As someone who's been on it, it's 140 years old. Did you feel safe when you were riding something like that?
Safe, yes. It definitely looks and feels old, but this is part of its charm also. That's been running for more than 100 years. That is part of the city and so on. So there's a beauty in that traditional aspect of it, but it definitely felt safe, especially with the quantity of people going on it. And as part of the tourism, it is part of also, it is maintained by the company that runs all of the public transport in Lisbon. So yes, you would assume it is safe.
Gemma, there's a loose cable. That's what's been blamed as a possible cause. And again, there's an investigation underway, so we don't know how plausible that is. But officials are handling this. Is there much transparency? Are we getting much information from that?
They don't. They've been very careful to say that they don't have anything, you know, to offer at the moment. I think given the amount of devastation, given the amount of people who've died, it would be quite churlish to come out with theories immediately. So no, Caris, who are the operators, the president has said that they don't know yet. The investigation has already started. The Office for the Prosecution, the prosecutor's office in Lisbon has started an investigation as well. He did say, though, this is the president of the operator, that the line will open again with a new carriage. So he's been very quick to say, we will reopen, you know, irrespective of what is found. But yeah, most people, most witnesses are agreed that it was a cable snapping, but they haven't come out and officially said that yet.
Dr. Elie, they've announced a National Day of Mourning, and I guess something like that, a National Day of Remembrance, is important, symbolically speaking at least, when a nation is dealing with a tragedy of this magnitude.
Definitely, and we've heard a lot of stories of people coming together, of the locals jumping in to help, of even people who were on the second cable car jumping in to help with the first one. So it really brings people together in a nice way. And if it is an issue about something that is so symbolic, then definitely this is going to unite the people even more. As long as, I guess, everybody would want to hear the truth about it and see who was responsible to be held accountable.
Just to give an update on that as well, the suspension of the 3 other funiculars which are in operation in Lisbon as well have been shut for the moment for urgent safety checks. So the government are saying that that is what they're currently doing in order to make sure and dealing with the broader safety issues that may be at play here. Thank you both for your thoughts on that. We're going to move on to our next story, this one dominating the headlines today. The UK's Deputy Prime Minister is fighting for her political future, and there are even calls for her to resign after she admitted that she underpaid tax on a flat that she owns. Angela Rayner, who is also the Housing Secretary, has denied that she tried to dodge paying extra tax, and she called the error a mistake, which is based on what she says was legal advice that she received at the time. Now, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has backed his deputy, but an investigation by his standards advisor into whether she broke ministerial rules is currently ongoing. Gemma, this story has been everywhere today. She's admitted to underpaying stamp duty. She's apologised and said it was a mistake. Is that going to be enough to protect Angela Rayner politically?
Well, do you know who's not happy about this? Her solicitors, who handled it, who have said that they've been made a scapegoat very publicly in all the headlines. Publicly, this is not a great look. We never like it when our politicians make mistakes, you know, whether it was intended or not, and she said clearly that it wasn't. I think what we need to remember as well is she's buying an £800,000 flat in a very expensive area in the UK, which is about 3 times the national house average in the UK.
Yeah.
Especially when there's the cost of living crisis and housing is unattainable for so many people. So that is definitely feeding into the story. I do think, though, her background, sort of among voters, is that she's kind of one of them. This is someone who has risen through the ranks. She was a teenage mother living on a council estate. She has a disabled son. She spoke about her struggles raising him. So I do wonder if her personal life will bolster her politically because of how far she's risen. Starmer supports her very strongly. He hasn't yet said what the outcome of the investigation. He still hasn't said if the outcome, is not in her favour, that he will fire her. He still won't even say that. So she has a lot of support in the Prime Minister.
I guess it's a bit more difficult for her to play that one of us card when you're after spending 800,000 on it.
Exactly.
This is true.
Keir Starmer, other senior members of the cabinet as well, Dr. Elie, have rallied around her. But how strong is that support? And also, how quickly could that disappear if the investigation discovers that, actually, maybe there's some wrongdoing?
Exactly. I think Starmer needs her. He likes her. She's a good image for the public.
Yeah.
But then what she did goes against all that image. It's exactly the opposite of what she's claiming to represent. So I think this is a damage that the Labour cannot afford. If there has been proof, or if the committee finds her, that she did actually do something wrong intentionally, I don't think Starmer can keep her by his side. Maybe he will not take the decision to sack her or to remove her, but she will actually, I think, have to resign in that sense. Put that into perspective, Labour is having a very bad year and very bad even previous year. They are losing their support among the people. I saw a very nice video saying, are Labour intentionally trying to lose the upcoming elections? Because they're doing everything wrong and they are not able to deliver on any of their promises, be it the housing, be it the healthcare, be it international relations, be it the migration issue and the asylum seekers and all of that. And now this comes to hit the core of what they are supposed to represent.
Well, this is it. They were the party who were put in power to weed out exactly this. And cast your minds back to 2003, when she was the very one who was quite vocal about Nadim Zahawi and how he had evaded tax, and there was offshore bank accounts that were involved as well. And although there is nothing legal about evading tax, it's not avoidance, there is the question that when the shoe is now on the other foot, she's expecting the sympathetic ear to be shed. And she has said she thought about stepping down. So understandable, she knows the repercussions of this. Do you think she'll stick around in Parliament given this?
Given how popular she is in the party, and given how tumultuous things are for the Labour Party right now, I think Starmer would rather have people around him, irrespective of, this kind of scandal, to kind of shore up his, position.
But you say how popular she is might change now, given something like this. If you're to re-poll people and ask them their opinion on her now, do you think it will have changed?
Yeah, I do think it will have changed. But that's politics. Your popularity can just change in the blink of an eye. I do think, because Starmer has shown before that he is not afraid of clearing out, the cabinet. He has got rid of some very high-profile people. So I think if he was going to get rid of her, this is the ideal opportunity to do so. But he has not even indicated that he will. So I think she might have some staying power.
Yeah. Maybe, as you said before the show, she might step back from the leading role, but stay there.
Yes,
stay
her deputy position may no longer be tenable.
Yeah, this could be something of a middle ground.
For sure, and the Conservatives for sure say that that's the exact scenario. The position is untenable. Now, earlier, I did speak to former Labour Party official Richard Parasite, and I asked him, about the optics of the housing minister bending the rules like this. Have a listen.
Britain has a very, very right-wing media, of course, and they hate Angela Rayner, right? You know, she's the person who's pushing for strong workers' rights from day one of employment here in the UK. She's always backed our trade unions. Well, most of the time she's backed our trade unions. She's the person who's pushing hardest for 1.5 million council homes to be built here in the UK. So, you know, she's seen as being a leading light of at least the soft left, as we call it. You know, therefore, she is always going to be very aggressively criticised by the British media. But then again, you know, she's got enormous support amongst the Labour Party's membership, the Labour Party's parliamentary party, its MPs. And also, actually, if you look at which Labour senior politicians, just Labour voters more generally, support and like, she's very high up that list. So I think in many ways, she's still an electoral asset.
As we heard from Richard there, Gemma, she is very popular with the voters, but something like this can take a big turn. Bad legal advice seems like a very poor excuse for something of such magnitude.
Yeah, and you would think someone in her position would be, you know, crossing the T's and dotting the I's for sure. But just on her popularity, she is the second most popular in the Labour list cabinet rankings, just behind Ed Miliband. So, yeah, she does have so much support. But yeah, someone of her standing to have made a air quotes mistake of this magnitude, it looks sloppy. So when you're making that kind of error, it will lead people to think, well, are you making errors, you know, in other areas of your work as well? So I think it's the sloppiness that will upset people.
You think Keir Starmer would be worried with something like this, Dr. Elie?
She's the housing minister.
She's the housing
The whole
minister.
issue is about her house and how
Absolutely.
much. So, yeah, I think he would be worried. I think they are looking at the upcoming local elections in May 2026, and they wouldn't want, you know, something like that to affect. If he needs to take a decision, I think he will take it for the sake of the elections and the party in general.
Well, we're going to move on to our next story, but sticking with the UK for this one. British politician Nigel Farage has been in Washington this week, and he's giving evidence to a US Congregational Committee on Free Speech. Farage, who is the leader of Reform UK, has compared the United Kingdom to North Korea. He believes the UK has sunk into what he calls a really awful authoritarian situation. The right-wing leader's appearance has met with criticism from Democrats, as well as UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who's accused him of flying to America to badmouth and talk down our country. Dr. Elie, Nigel Farage, he is the UK's Donald Trump, isn't he? Comparing the UK to North Korea on free speech might be a little bit of a stretch. What's behind the provocative language that he's using here?
Comparing him to Trump, it means you think he might have election surprises in the upcoming elections?
I honestly believe that Reform UK
I think they will.
Massive ground.
Because what he's arguing, no matter how weird the way he does it does have ears in the United Kingdom and does have people who support all this rhetoric. Now, going to the United States, witnessing in front of the US Congressional Committee, all of that is quite sleazy. This is not the proper way of doing things. And it is, again, a series of what we can call a peak of US intervention in UK politics, which is not very welcomed by British in general and not seen before for a long while ago. Definitely the issue in itself is very critical, and there's a lot of gray area there. The whole issue of freedom of speech, what do you stop, how do you stop it, and where do you put the limits in that? How do you prevent the policing authority from going into a slippery slope of stopping anyone who says anything that they don't like? What is, properly considered as incitement to violence? What is hate speech? All of these are gray areas, and the general public in Britain is challenged with these issues. And some people, the supporters of Farage, but also maybe these supporters are growing in number, they are feeling that their country is becoming more and more oppressive, and they definitely link this to the fight against the wokeness, the fight against migration, the fight against the Muslim invasion of the UK, as they call it, and all these themes all of a sudden become connected to each other to fuel some fundamentalism, if I may say, or radicalism in politics that Farage is definitely benefiting from. And he's definitely listening to what's happening in the Labour Party, very happy and looking at the upcoming elections.
I think that's exactly it. But he's right now just trying to get the sound bites out there and get that on-screen exposure, saying to US lawmakers that the rules are authoritarian. He's been labelled as a Putin-loving free speech imposter. Is it political theatre? Are we seeing Nigel Farage do what he does really well? You have to even admit, if you're not a Farage supporter, you have to look and say, the product is pretty slick.
I am not a fan of Farage, as I've stated before, but you are right. He knows what his supporters want. It's very Trumpian to know what your supporters want and to give that to them. But I'm not sure if the Americans appreciate that they don't, you go to another country and you criticize your country. And I don't think the Americans would appreciate that, to be honest with you. And I don't believe Farage has the heft to affect things, culturally or politically between the US and the UK. He has set himself up as Trump light, Diet Trump, I might call him here. But kind of calling for the use of diplomacy and trade, it's almost calling for the US to put sanctions on the UK because Nigel Farage has a bee in his bonnet about what he thinks is an attack on free speech. Now, I absolutely loved what the Democrats said to him in this congressional hearing. Congressman Jared Nadler, he asked why the committee had sought evidence from a, quote, fringe politician from the United Kingdom. And Hank Johnson asked Farage to confirm that Reform currently only has 4 MPs. So
5, I think, this evening.
Right, well, yes,
it might have changed as we're on air.
That's true, 5. But it was like they're on to him. But I love that the Democrats were showing their teeth there.
But again, you said the Americans would not appreciate, but the Trumpists would appreciate, because again, the Trumpism, if we may call it, is quite an international movement, if I may say, and these people do feel connected and do want to support each other across countries, across continents. So I think, yes, the Democrats would not like what he said, but what he says might have good hearing ears among the Republicans, especially among supporters of Trump. But still, I don't think anyone would go to the extent of putting sanctions on the UK or actually using trade deals or other things to pressure UK politicians. This is far too fetched.
He did kind of backtrack on that a little bit. He said, oh, no, I wasn't calling for the US to sort of place these sanctions on. I just want American politicians and businesses to try and persuade the UK over this. So, yes, he did do
that they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he also brought up something that, and I didn't expect to see this on the world stage, but Nigel Farage mentioned Graham Linehan, who's the co-creator of Father Ted, the IT crowd as well, that he's been the victim of the UK's over-stringent policy on harassment. So he was arrested recently at Heathrow Airport. 5 officers showed up to take him into custody on the basis that he had sent a tweet out which was seen as incitement to hatred. Now, Nigel Farage said that actually that was just him exercising his right to free speech and that this is an overkill on that situation. But he's used this as an example in his speech.
And it's a powerful example, because the notion that 5 police officers are going to turn up to arrest you over a tweet, it does sound something like out of Black Mirror. It does sound a bit crazy. So he is exploiting this, fantastically. Linehan, as we know, he's kind of torched his career with the sort of tweets and being outspoken on trans issues and things like that. But yeah, it is quite a niche person for Farage to be holding up, in the United States. You probably don't know who he is, at all, Linehan. But no, and this would appeal to Farage's, base. Oh, you can't say anything anymore. You can't say what you want anymore. So this is the perfect thing for him to grasp onto.
But I guess, Dr. Elie, that is the concern for a lot of people, and certainly a lot of Farage supporters will feel that's kind of what we feel is going on right now. You can't open your mouth before you get taken to court for something.
Definitely, but I want to put it even broader than the Farage supporters. As a human rights activist all around the world, for me, freedom of speech is a key human right. And if you tend to put limitations on that, you are going into a very slippery slope that you have to be very careful how to regulate for that, how to legalize that, and where to put the limit. What is actually hate speech? What is actually incitement to violence? What is the valid physical proof of calling for an aggression? This is what should be stopped by the law. But the law cannot and should not protect my feelings or protect me from feeling offended or anything of that sort. Even when we speak about defamation laws, you need to actually go to court and prove that you have been damaged physically or financially or something of the sort to actually stop a person from saying something that could be harmful to you. So I thread there very, very carefully. And I do believe that such rhetoric, again, Farage is using it to attract more and more supporters, because definitely there are people in the UK that are feeling things are being pushed too far.
It does seem Farage never treads carefully in anything. He goes both booths into the pond, absolutely no hold back whatsoever.
But I wonder as well, like going to another country and criticising your country, I don't think his supporters would like that, really, you know, because his whole shtick is Britishness, and then he's gone abroad and criticise Britain. And I do wonder if that will have an effect as well.
I guess it depends on what he's criticised, a certain element of Britain, and I think a lot of his supporters may go,
yeah,
I feel that as well, and thanks for bringing it to the global attention. He may garner even more support going into elections because of this. I really don't know. Thanks to both of you for your thoughts on that. We're going to move on to our next story. There is speculation over the state of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's health. That's following apparent efforts to conceal clues about it. Video has emerged of staff wiping down anything that North Korea's leader has touched during his visit to Beijing to join China's Grand Military Parade this week. Frank Smith has this report from Seoul.
The budding friendship between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin was on full display in Beijing. In their meeting in the Chinese capital, Kim vowed full support for Russia in its war against Ukraine.
As I mentioned to you during our previous meeting, if there is any way we can assist Russia, we will certainly do it as fraternal duty. We will spare no effort in providing help to Russia.
Despite the brotherly affection, video has emerged showing meticulous measures to conceal clues about Kim's health. The clip, posted by a Russian journalist on social media, shows North Korean staff carefully wiping down the arms and back of the chair Kim sat on during talks with Putin, his drinking glass also removed. Reports also say the armored train Kim rode to China for the military parade is equipped with its own private lavatory designed to prevent any biometric data leak that might give hints about his physical condition. That, according to South Korean and other intelligence agencies. This isn't the first time these sorts of protocols have been in place and are designed to prevent foreign intelligence from getting hold of Chairman Kim's biological samples for testing and analysis. That even applies to agencies from countries with friendly relations with North Korea. Analysts have long speculated over the possible health problems Kim faces. Recent reports say Kim is putting on weight and may be struggling with high blood pressure and diabetes. It also comes after the North Korean leader brought his teenage daughter, Kim Ju-ae, to Beijing this week in her first public outing overseas. It's fueled speculation she may be successor to the Kim family dynastic rule over the nuclear-armed state.
For North Korean citizens, seeing Ju-ae's exposure expand from within the country to overseas will likely reinforce the perception that she's almost certainly moving toward becoming the successor.
Details about Kim Ju-ae's age aren't clear, although reports suggest she may be around 13 years old. Officially, she can't be designated as successor in North Korea until she turns 20. But analysts aren't ruling out her father putting aside that rule to formally appoint her as early as the 9th Party Congress in January next year. Frank Smith, Al-Arabiya English, Seoul.
Now, it's the time of the show where Gemma and Dr. Elie have chosen two of the rather quirkier stories of the day to bring to us. Gemma, yours, first of all, tells us the tale of Ned, the lonely snail.
like a children's book.
Almost.
I'm going to write this book after this. We need to fire up snail Tinder, okay? Because Ned is a snail who was found in a garden in New Zealand by, and I know you love this job title.
I love it.
She's an observologist.
Self-defined
observologist called Giselle Clarkson. Now, she found Ned in her garden, and she noticed that Ned's shell spirals to the left.
Is that unusual with the snail community?
That is, within the snail community, that makes him 1 in 40,000 because most snail shells spiral to the right. So
I never knew that, see?
No, that's,
yeah,
you were an observologist, you should be fully aware.
Exactly.
I have learned so much about snails doing this story. But it also means that his reproductive organs don't line up with most, so he wouldn't be able to, meet a snail lady and have a snail family. So what it's across New Zealand now, everyone's going out into their garden to try and find a snail whose shell spirals also go left, who can be a companion for Ned. Now, Gisella's moved Ned into a fish tank in her house so he doesn't get snapped up by, a passing seagull.
Mm-hmm.
And, New Zealanders are all on the hunt for a partner for Ned.
Are they willing to take... There's a picture of Ned on the screen that we can see right now,
Ned.
and you can see there very clearly he's differently able due to the circles you can see there. So is it possible that we can find a snail internationally for Ned and therefore have that flown in?
I'm hoping this does go international because just because a snail is single, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get on, So I do think like an array of snail partners, he could date around a little bit, find the snail that's perfect for him.
So somewhat of a single snail's night where he kind of goes around the
Try saying that over and over again.
But then you have to set the mood, so to make sure that the characters
some Barry White
match.
in the background. I don't know what.
Exactly.
It's about personalities as well, remember,
Here you go.
So, yeah, it won't just be a single, snail. So
Right.
Ned is on the lookout. So in your garden, if you find a snail's shell which spirals left, could be a potential mate for Ned.
The question is, can you comfortably date and do other things if there are observologists observing you?
I mean, it's basically, there's been TV shows, it's Love Island is what this is.
Your dating life would literally be
For-
under the spotlight for sure.
snails.
But look, he's an international superstar now. He could make as
Absolutely.
many demands as he wanted.
Such a worthy cause.
Yeah, 100%.
I love it.
I think we're all out here looking for different things to support. Get behind this one for sure. If you're a single snail and Ned looks like an attractive mate, well, there you go. Dr. Elie, a young Australian boy, has just created a new country. He's made it himself. He's the president. Tell us more.
Definitely. First, let's set a little bit of background. It's not uncommon for Australians to declare their own state. We see that every other year or so. An Australian who has bought a piece of land, they'll declare their state, and then the state would care less to actually stop that action. They would produce even coins and passports and so on. So this bloke just took on the heritage of Australia's self-declared states, and he found a small strip of land by the Danube River between Serbia and Croatia. The background of that is also the Yugoslavian war and the fact that how Yugoslavia got divided, and there are still some no man's lands on the border there. And he found one of those. He went there, he declared his state, and he started accepting applications for citizenship. He actually got 350 citizens to whom he issued passports that cannot travel you anywhere. They allow you to travel anywhere, but still you have the passport of that beautiful state. The problem is that after a while, the Croatian government did not like the idea. They invaded the country and they removed him from there by force, and he is now ruling from exile. His government is in Croatia, trying to see how he can come back and re-establish his rule.
He's given a title, it's the Free Republic of Verdus. It's a micronation. But there's many of these micronations that exist, right, across the globe. Many of these have popped up, and it happens every couple of years where somebody else would say, this is a micronation, come and live here.
There's again, self-declared entities, but nobody recognizes those. But as long as they are not doing any harm, as long as the states, again, don't care about what's happening there, they might allow it to continue to exist. But being on a border between Croatia and Serbia is not the best place to have that microcosmos there, so eventually he was removed.
So not on the holiday list for next year, Gemma.
What's he offering the citizens? I might investigate.
Not much. It's like a nice small forest and with
like
some small houses there, but nothing more than that, unfortunately.
You have to pay tax. If you're a resident, would you have to pay tax?
I wouldn't know. We have to ask him.
Yeah, if it's no tax, I'm all up for that. Thank you to both of you. That's all from us on W News Extra. Again, a huge thanks to our guests in the studio, Dr. Elie Al-Hindy, the Professor of International Relations at the American University in the Emirates, and of course to correspondent and columnist Gemma White. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can follow us on X. GNT with Tom Burgess Watson is coming up next. But goodbye for now.